Hey, it's Greg Burdine, pastor at Faith Baptist Church, and we've got a Route 66, another day, day number 230. Three chapters in the book of Jeremiah, the prophecy of Jeremiah. Jeremiah did a lot of what I would call object lessons. He did some things and showed some things to represent what they were going to go through. And these three chapters show a little bit of that. In Jeremiah chapter 24, there were two baskets of figs. They were fruits that they had in the Middle East and in the land that was there, and they represented the exiles that God will restore, and then those who will face judgment. There were two baskets. Some were saved and some weren't. Some and the Jews, some of them went into exile and some of them came back. And it just represented that. And God had a remnant. God will always have a remnant that is faithful to him. Jeremiah chapter 25, Jeremiah makes a unique prophecy that came true very explicitly. He promised that there would be 70 years of captivity in Babylon and the judgment on the nations, and then they would be released. And it's interesting when you read the book of Daniel. Daniel, I really believe, was reading the book of Jeremiah and knew the timetable of when they would be able to go back to Jerusalem, to Israel. And so he promised 70 years you're going to be there, and then some of you are going to come back. Jeremiah chapter 26, Jeremiah narrowly escapes death after he delivered a temple sermon that warned of Jerusalem's destruction. You could imagine it would be like somebody that would go to Washington, D.C. and say the White House is going to be destroyed. But this was even more than that, because Jerusalem, the temple, was the center of their political life, the center of their government life, the center of their religious life. It was everything. And when he said it's going to be destroyed, they got really mad, and God delivered him, and actually Jeremiah lived for a long time. So some lessons that we can learn from this one. And one lesson I think that's good is God's discipline is aimed to restore those who turn to him. Um, Sometimes, even as parents, we punish instead of discipline. Discipline has a positive outlook, even though the children might not understand it. And that's what God had. God was going to discipline Jerusalem. He's going to discipline his people so that they would turn back to him. Jeremiah 24:7 says, I will give them a heart to know that I am the Lord. It's kind of like as a parent when we discipline our children, and then they come and give us a hug and they do the right thing, and later in life maybe even they appreciate the discipline that they received. That's what God does. A second lesson that we can learn is God's judgment is certain according to his plan. God disciplines and judges exactly like it ought to be done. And that's what it says in Jeremiah 25:11. Just read a couple of verses here. This whole land shall become a ruin, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. God knew exactly what he wanted to do, how much punishment he would give them, and that's exactly what he gave them, because that's what they deserved. And the third lesson is speaking God's truth may be costly, but we've got to do it faithfully. Every now and then, even as a pastor, and I get the privilege every Sunday to be able to present what God wants. It's not always easy. It doesn't always fall on ears that are saying, oh, tell me more, tell me more. Every now and then, God asks us to deliver a message that's not very popular, that people really don't want to hear it, but they need to hear the truth. And when they need to know that they've heard what God wants. Jeremiah 26:15. But know for certain that if you put me to death, Jeremiah said, you will bring innocent blood upon yourselves. You can kill the messenger, but not the message. And we need to share God's truth, even sometimes when it's not well received, but tell the truth of what God wants. Not to do it vindictively, not to do it in anger, but to do it truthfully, to be able to warn people of the direction that their life is going. So those are just some lessons as you read today's chapters. It's only 3 chapters, but there's Jeremiah's doesn't have an easy ministry at all.